I think that 90% of the things that we fear never materialize, ever, in any way. People tell me I'm fearless. I'm like, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of everything.
What's your relationship like with stillness?
I'm fearful for a reason, because this is big, this is important. Anything that's big and important and challenging will have that effect on you. You have to understand that if you're not willing to fail, you're not going to succeed. When you break up that huge monumental challenge into small chunks, it becomes much more manageable. That's also how I approach challenges in business and in work. If you just use logic and reason to talk back to those fears, then you just shrink it.
So now you've navigated through that. The companies that you've got going on, your endurance swimming, your performing, speaking, keynote, like inspiring how much your capacity to hold life. What's next for you?
Oh my goodness.
Welcome to another episode of the Transformation Code. Have you ever wondered what it takes to take on like endurance challenges, to take on, all of what life has to offer, yet do it from a regulated space? Well, in today's episode, we have Carina. Carina is a record-breaking open water swimmer, award-winning musician, and motivational speaker from Cape Town. Known for pushing the limits of human endurance, Carina has crossed some of the world's toughest channels, but her greatest transformation came when she realized that true strength isn't found in medals, but in purpose and courage. She turned that insight into action by founding Swim for Hope, using her swims to raise awareness and funds for causes close to her heart. Through every current she has faced, in the ocean, on stage, and in life, Carina shows that transformation happens when you keep moving forward, even when the tide is against you. What does it take to create purpose in your life? Going after something which forces you to meet those parts of yourself and grow into someone that's even more integrated and someone that overcomes himself again and again and again to become someone greater. Like, I think that's an inspiration. But also, like, one level deeper, I got very curious by, in those extreme circumstances, like swimming in freezing cold water, doing long 5, 10, 20 kilometer swims, like the effect that would have on your nervous system. And how does, Carina go about regulating herself or navigating those states which she's being forced into in those moments of time, right? And I thought that could be a great, valuable lesson for the community to learn from, that when challenges arise, when difficult conversations come up, when those things come up inside of your business which make you feel uncomfortable, how do you navigate them and move through them so that you can still create a life of what you desire and also become more of who you truly are at the core in the process? So listen in, let this code activate something deep within. Enjoy. Yeah, Carina, first of all, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate having you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Sam.
And I'm fascinated. Why do you do what you do?
That's a big question. I suppose I'm always curious, The things that I do are things that I've honed. It's skills that I've spent a lot of time perfecting or practicing. But I always feel, as a classically trained musician, there's no such thing as perfection. So you're always driving harder and you can do this better and you can play faster, or once you've got this phrase, then you can do it better, or there'll be a more difficult one. So all my life, I've kind of chased perfection and realized, I suppose, quite a while ago that that's never going to be achieved. But it's in that process of chasing something that the excitement actually lies. And once you realize that it's not really about perfection, but it's about pushing your own boundaries and understanding that those limitations that you see in one moment are actually just a glass ceiling and you can do more. It's incredibly exciting. It's fulfillment. And once you then realize that you can use that and that drive to fulfill your own potential to change the space around you, that's the ultimate for me. So long answer to a short question is
No,
I
it's
think
I
that's
think
what drives me in a way. I've realized. Yeah.
nice. It's like this. What I'm hearing there is it's this like pursuit to become someone greater, right? To break boundaries.
Mm,
But and then let's just double click on this perfection piece. 'Cause I think so many of the listeners, me included too, you know, at times where this like perfection can almost like stunt growth,
mm,
right? Because it's like difficult to keep moving when you have this like perfection piece
yeah,
that actually is like impossible to hit, right?
exactly.
Because what is it? It's an illusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, knowing what I know and what I've learned around this perfection piece, it can often come and be built from somewhere. Like, where was the perfection behavior? Where do you think that came from for you?
Well, I think it's firstly personality and then what you were exposed to. So I started learning music, classical music, from a young age at around 8. And really, it's. I always say that a professional musician's journey starts when they pick up their instrument for the first time, with their first lesson, because it's such a difficult skill to master. And it's one of those few things that you can't really learn as an adult. It takes so much just skill and discipline and practice and practice and practice. And it's that practice where you think that the aim is perfection, and then you get there, like I said, and then there's a new challenge and a new challenge. And but yes, I think that's where it starts. I haven't really discovered many other fields in life that are so incredibly perfection orientated as is learning a classical instrument. And yeah, I suppose that forms you as a human to a certain extent. My kids, I've got 3 kids, they all learn musical instruments, and we all get to a point where we hate it because it becomes hard and it's hard work. And I've always encouraged them to keep going, not because I want them to become musicians or I want them to be like me at all, but it's really just the discipline that teaches you. You have to have a balance, though. So so often in that space, it's very cutthroat, and you have to be the best to even have the hope of having a job in the industry one day, especially here in South Africa. So yeah, I think you just have to understand it, and once you're able to understand that drive for perfection and see it in context, then you can, well, I've learned to have a balance with it and hopefully use it for good as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like finding that balance of how you can use it to move forward.
Mm.
Where do you believe it comes from? Like that such high standard, right? That so many entrepreneurs or so many creators can hold. Like, where do you think that's modeled? Like, how do you think that that's birthed?
Yeah, look, I suppose it is within us all. Just that drive, that need to be good at something, to have affirmation, to be affirmed. I've got kids, so I'm curious about the psychology of humankind and how it gets morphed by society. I see my little 9-year-old, being very resistant to doing things that are hard, but when he does, and when he does it well, it kind of just transforms his mood, and it transforms his day. So, and that comes from within. Obviously, the more time we spend in society and the status quo, it feeds us all these ideas and things of what we should be and want to be. So it becomes a bit of a chaotic situation, But yeah, I do think that we are born to fulfill our own potential, whatever that is. And sometimes we forget that because there's just so many streams of influx and influence and things, and other people doing so many things. And now we've got social media that's literally running our lives. So we forget about what it is that is within ourselves and our authentic drive sometimes. But it's there. So being able to connect to that is a very precious skill, I think, that we can also all develop.
That's awesome. Is that where your endurance swimming, is that where that was birthed from? Like this, yeah, would you be open to sharing, how you even stepped into that world, and what your driving force was to do such a, incredible things?
Yeah.
So swimming.
Well, I guess it was all coincidence, really. I was studying music. I never really swam at school. I was the anti-athlete at school, focusing on becoming the best flute player. But when I went to study music, I consciously thought, no, I need to have a balance in my life. I don't want to sit in a dark practice room all the time. At the same time, I wanted to increase my breath control for playing the flute. And so swimming was the obvious choice. I've always loved the water. I always found the water very calming and healing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start swimming for exercise. And I can still remember my first attempt. I went with a couple of friends who were better swimmers than me. And we jumped in the pool and they started swimming some laps. And I thought, okay, I'd do that too. And I started. And by the end of lap 1, I was dead. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't. How do they even keep going for more than one length? But I forced myself to do another length and another length. And I was exhausted. I think I did 8 lengths a day. I still remember going to the shop and buying myself some sweets and cool drink. And the person looked at me and said, like, why are you so red? But somehow I just went back. I was curious. I was curious to see how much further I could go. And the next day I did 12 lengths. And the next time I forced myself to do 14 lengths. And I thought that was my max. But then the next time I went, and when I was exhausted by 12 lengths, I said, no, just one more, just one more, and just one more until I was doing 16. And then eventually after a few weeks, I was on 40 lengths. And, so the story continues. And then I was doing 5 kilometers in the pool after, I suppose, a couple of years. And people started telling me, wow, what are you training for? You're such a good swimmer, And I was like, no, I'm just practicing my breath control for the flute. And there was a triathlete who came to me and said, listen, I've actually never seen a stroke like yours. It's gorgeous. Why don't you try long distance swimming? You made for it. And so I thought like, woo, I'm made for something except other than the flute. That's exciting. So I Googled and I found a race, like an ocean race in Cape Town. It was an 11-kilometer swim from Simonstown to Muizenberg across a bay. And I thought, no, like that's impossible. Nobody can swim 11 kilometers. Maybe it's 1.1. Maybe they just left out the full stop. So I called the organizers. They said, no, it's 11. And I said, so what about wetsuits? I mean, it's cold. No wetsuits. So I said, well, what about the sharks? No, don't worry, there's more sharks in the ocean. And I kind of liked their attitude. And I pitched there, and on the morning I was standing in the water and I was shaking and shivering and going, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to turn around. Look at all these people around me. They're all incredible swimmers. They know what they're doing. They're so confident. I can't do this. But somehow when the whistle went, I went. And 10 minutes later, I had found a new world. I was just taken by the rhythm of the ocean. It was glorious. It was going up and down and I could feel the water, and I was literally just, like making love with the ocean. It was just so gorgeous. And I swam and all the worries were gone. I couldn't even think of distance. And suddenly I was at the other side and going like, no, I want to go back. How could that have been 11 kilometers? So I think I just found my space, and it was such a new space, and it was so free and calming. And the next swim I did was absolute chaos. I was going to swim from Robben Island to Cape Town. The water was 15 degrees, which isn't like deadly cold, but it was very cold for me. There were waves crashing on me, and I was like, how? No, this is, But somehow when you just keep stroking and you just keep listening to the space around you and you change your stroke, again, you can get there. And I did. I got to the other side, and every time that happens, you sort of walk out a slightly new person. And that's growth, and that's adventure. And that's really important for us to challenge ourselves in that way. So it's become a sport, an experience, an activity that's completely defined me. I've done many, many swims since. I've swum across the English Channel. I've swum across the Straits of Gibraltar. At the time, I broke the female world record. I've done many straits and channels across the world. I've done many bays and channels around here, around Africa, that have never been done before. So quite a few of the swims I've done are firsts and onlys for some reason. The most recent one was a couple of years ago. I swam from Hermanus to Gansbaai across Walker Bay. This is known as sort of the white shark capital of the world. So I suppose that's why nobody else is going there. But, when you just put your mitigating factors in place. I always have boat support. On that swim, I had dedicated shark spotters and so on. And it's incredibly exciting. And it's allowed me to firstly push my own boundaries and realize that I'm capable of so much more than I ever thought I might be. And secondly, it's allowed me to show others that we can do more. And through that also I've managed to raise funds for organizations that I support, that I believe in, and raise awareness. And it's incredible.
That is incredible. Yeah, like what I'm hearing now is like that first swim that you did, you kind of just went into this flow state, which is just such a beautiful state to be in, like in a conversation, or a beautiful state to be in when you're doing exercise, or if you're performing or whatever you're doing, like that. When you hit that flow state, it's like, but then what I'm hearing there is the second swim was very different, and what I'm hearing after that one is you've taken on these challenges. And I'm so curious, like, what have you learned about facing fears that would naturally arise? Like, I imagine the fear of the unknown is a huge fear that holds many people back. Yeah, being in the ocean doing a swim where it's known to have great white sharks, I'm sure must have. I know you got boat watchers, but still, like inside of your system, like that survival system must just pick up and be like, there could be a great white shark underneath me right now.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that?
I think that 90% of the things that we fear never materialize ever in any way. 10% of the things that we fear do somehow materialize, but guess what? We handle it, right? Of course, there's catastrophes that happen, but there's no control that we have over that. Those things we can't control. What we can control is obviously our thought process and the way that we respond to whatever in life. And fear is such a strong part of those things that can hold us back and that can just make us small. I've read up about it a little bit, but I also, like to do my own research. I feel like we have a lot of answers within ourselves. And what is fear, What is it? Is it an organ? No. Is it a fact? No, it's not. It's an emotion. It's a voice in your head. We've got so many voices in our head. We've got voices of curiosity. We've got voices of love and feeling and joy. And then we have fear. And I think because fear it's got physical symptoms, it makes you feel so uncomfortable, and it actually makes you shake, and your heart palpitations and sweating. And I don't know, somehow that just wants us to stop. It makes us want to stop. But if you understand it and you know how to talk to it, you can definitely move forward further and further and further and further, as far as you want, really. But it's that skill to be able to speak to the fear. And I know that you can negotiate with fear to show up in this life and to do the things that we dream of and more. I do that every day. I think we all do to a certain degree, but the more conscious we can be about it, the more we'll be able to do. And so if you understand that fear is an emotion, just as joy, and I do a lot of performing, so I can see the room shift when I play a song, and I go, that's an emotion, so is fear. Let's negotiate with it. Let's debate with it. So when fear comes to me and says, ooh, what's underneath there, Carina, there's sharks, then I go, yeah, I know. But let's research what that means for me in that scenario. Shark attacks on swimmers are incredibly rare. It's always a case of mistaken identity. So how do we mitigate that? And I will mitigate that by having support boats very close to me and having someone spot for sharks, and someone who actually knows their behavior. So someone who spends a lot of time out there in the ocean and can see what I don't see and have seen what I don't see and have studied what I haven't studied. So it's a question of research and mitigating and then trust. I then put my trust in them. And yes, of course, if there's something that suddenly wells up underneath me, I have a fright, and my mind is immediately a shock. That's that primal response that we have. But then logic comes in, and logic can prevail. And logic says to me, nobody on the boat made a big issue out of it. That's not a danger. Okay. And then you can use that technique throughout all the voices that come and say, listen, you can't do this distance. It's too far. I mean, swimming 30 kilometers is not really something that you're meant to be doing, I guess. It's like maybe walking 30 kilometers.
I mean, it's even a stretch, like walking or running 30 kilometers.
I wouldn't run it. I wouldn't run it. But now I want to swim it. And somewhere in myself, I believe I can. But this voice is saying, you can't. You can't. Of course you can't. It's impossible. Because nobody really does that. But that guy did it. Yeah, but you're not that guy, says fear. And then I go, well, fine. At 30 kilometers, my mind cannot quite comprehend that. But what my mind can comprehend is 5 kilometers, because I do that every day. And I swim 5 kilometers once, so I can swim it twice. Then that's 10. And if I can swim 10 once, maybe I can swim 10 twice. But hang on, I want to first have like a halfway mark. So at 15 kilometers, I'm going to give myself like a halfway tick. And then I'm going to tell my mind, okay, now I'm starting again. I've done 15 kilometers, but it's gone. It doesn't count. Now I want to do 15 kilometers. And then you're there. So, when you break up that huge monumental challenge into small chunks, it becomes much more manageable. You can't look, I can't look to the other side of the bay. Sometimes you can't even see the other side most of the time and say, well, I'm swimming 35 kilometers. It's stupid. I'm just stroking. I'm just swimming for a day. I'm just doing my 5K and then another 5K. And I give myself a little tick and a little tap on the shoulder when I complete that goal. And that's cool. And that's also how I approach challenges in business and in work. That ultimate huge goal and that huge project seems absolutely impossible. And if you give into that and the fear that says, you're just wasting your time, all those rejections, all the work, all that's going nowhere, then you're going to stop and go back to whatever it is, your couch or the comfortable place. But if you just take it chunk by chunk, 5Ks by 5Ks, or whatever your 5K is, then it just becomes so much more realistic. And you almost don't realize how much closer you're getting to the other side, to that goal, whatever it may be, because you focused on the process and on the now without letting go of the bigger picture completely.
This really resonates. Yeah, it's like when working, on coaching calls or inside of myself, I used to have this dialogue, and I noticed this in many of us when they get stuck. There's this dialogue that sees fear and hears those voices, and one may listen to them and just fall into them, but also another, which used to be my strategy, to be sit down. We're doing it anyway, just go away,
Exactly.
And want to push it away, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from your share, which is where I feel has been an area of real development inside of myself too, is how you are able to have these voices come up, but then treat them like you would treat a child, like you would a kid, right? You'd talk to them and you'd be in a calm way, rather than tell them to shut up and go away. So what I'm hearing here is you're negotiating with them and understanding them and that's a really the powerful inner dialogue which allows you to move forward, but at the same time is not suppressing. Is what I'm hearing from
you have to acknowledge your fears. People tell me I'm fearless. I'm I'm terrified. I'm terrified of everything, I'm terrified sometimes of getting into my car. I'm terrified of walking on the stage. I'm terrified of speaking in front of people. It's fearful. I'm terrified of going in the ocean. I'm terrified of failing. But if you just use logic and reason to talk back to those fears, then you just shrink it. You shrink it. It doesn't go away ever. I've done my gosh, dozens, if not hundreds of big open water swims in harsh conditions. So I should be a pro by now, but every time I stand at the water's edge, I feel the fear, I shake, I sweat, I've done literally thousands of performances on stage. Every time I feel it, but that's also not a bad thing, because that fear, if you use it in the right way, it can actually make you sharp. It primes you for action. Those things, even the bigger goals and projects that make you feel the fear, you need to listen to that and go, I'm fearful for a reason, because this is big, this is important. Anything that's big and important and challenging will have that effect on you. But that's where the opportunities lie. And that's where the potential growth lies. And that's where we're going to be able to break that glass ceiling of our own sort of perceived limitations. And that's where the excitement starts. So,
have you had a moment in, whether performing on stage, speaking, or swimming, where this emotion, fear, has really built up to the point where it's almost like gone past your capacity point, and maybe there's been certain reactions where you've just almost like had to stop, or where your system's just gone into more of like a shutdown response? Like, I'm curious whether you've had those experiences.
When I was younger, yes, sometimes with performing music, like exams or a big important concert, I would feel myself shutting down, but my fingers would continue. And that's amazing. I don't know whether that's me or just like, I don't know what allows me to continue in that spot, but definitely. And then I can just feel it sort of falling apart, but I would finish, I haven't really had that in swimming. I've had in speaking, things do go wrong, and it's almost like you then enter a space of just autopilot. I kind of go into autopilot and I see it all sort of crumbling underneath me and going like, damn, and why isn't the technical working? And then, but my mouth keeps talking. My fingers keep playing, but it's not, the soul isn't there. It's really just survival mode.
Right.
I've had that in swimming as well, where it's survival mode, but I don't stop.
Don't stop, right.
I've been in situations where I should have stopped, but I didn't, because I do push myself so hard. In a way, I'm not scared, really. I'm sometimes curious to know what that space feels like, where you either challenge death even, or where you challenge the edge of absolute failure. I think it's a gift to be able to get to that point. And come back and understand it and analyze it. But we all have those moments where things fall apart. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. And then, like you shared, there's that growth point. And for anyone listening, it's like it shows up in different areas. Like, it sounds like you have this curiosity to be like, I'm meeting these places. Like, I want to meet these places.
I want to meet these places. I really don't.
Like, it's like a stretch zone, right? It's like, you're growing in that.
Yeah, you always have a choice.
Yeah.
Do you abandon or do you continue? And it's okay to abandon. It's really okay. But I'm curious. So when life takes me to that point, then I think most often I'm going to push further to feed that curiosity and to be able to come back, I suppose, and share. Yeah,
and this may show up in different areas for different people. Like, for someone, it may be doing some endurance training. Someone else showing up on social media and doing a talking story. For someone else, maybe having a difficult conversation with their partner that they would rather push under a rug because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So when you get to those places where you feel that survival center's taken over, and you have, what I'm hearing is you have this mindset where you're like, I'm just going to keep going, right? What other tools and techniques do you use to help navigate those situations so that someone listening in can also learn those ingredients of transformation?
Yeah. Look, those times are temporary mostly. I often compare it to swimming against the current. In my life, because I do a lot of pioneering swims, there usually isn't a lot of information about the ocean and the conditions and so on. And I often just get in and swim. And, to just get in and swim 25 kilometers to the other side is not necessarily always advisable, but I do. And quite often I land up in harsh waters where, I've got waves slapping against me. And one example is on my Walker Bay crossing where 2 hours into the swim, I look at my watch, I say, guys, but I've only done 6Ks. I should have done 8 by now. And they're like, Carina, sorry, we should have checked, but it's spring tide and the current's really, really, really strong and you're going straight into it. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Why? But so while all the voices say, get out, stop, this is stupid, I just keep going. And not always easy. But I say to myself, this is temporary. It's going to be 2 more hours or 4 more hours, even if it's 10 more hours. Tomorrow it's gone. And tomorrow I've done something that's a great story, hopefully, or that's stretched me into a way where I can learn. If the only thing I learned is not to swim against the current next time, then I've learned that, If the thing that I've learned is to really check the tides, then that's a lesson, and then I'll never do that again. And I can share that lesson beyond myself to my kids, to my community. But when it gets really, really incredibly tough and I want to stay in, firstly, I need to acknowledge that decision to myself. I've decided to stay in. I've chosen this. There is the option to get out, to abandon, but I'm choosing to stay in. How am I going to do this? Firstly, you tell yourself it's temporary. Secondly, you just focus on the next stroke and the next stroke, because 10 hours of stroking feels impossible, especially if your muscles are sore. But one stroke is always possible. You can always do one more stroke. And then one more. And then you can always do one more. And you can always do one more thing in life. Maybe not the 20, 30 things that you think are what the journey looks like, but you can do one more. And then after that one, you can do one more. And often that one will fuel you to do 1 more and 2 more and 5 more. And suddenly you're not suffering anymore because you've just committed to that one more thing. And that brings so much more. And it's simple as that for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, the one more stroke, like that being used in whatever the one more is. Absolutely. For whoever's listening, right?
Just
like
one
rather
more
than
thing.
the having the goal, right? Like with your swims, like you've got the goal, you know what you are setting out to accomplish, but then also like step by step or stroke by stroke, right? And whatever that is for the person listening, it's like, what is that one more stroke which is possible rather than the big thing? Have you had a moment where you were so focused on, like, is that lesson's integrated from somewhere, right? When did you learn that? Yeah.
Probably in music as well, in a way. You struggle and you struggle. You can struggle for 5 minutes, or you can struggle for a whole practice session, or you can struggle for a month to perfect this little phrase. And I just tell myself, just one more, I'm not getting it yet and I want to give up. Just try it one more time, just one more. And even if that one more didn't perfect this phrase, tomorrow when I come back, I play it perfectly the first time sometimes. But if you give up and you don't give yourself the opportunity to fail again and therefore to succeed, then it's gone. So, you have to learn to be, I think it's really important. You have to understand that if you're not willing to fail, you're not going to succeed. So if that one more is a failure, and that one more is a failure, and that next one is a failure, the following one has got the possibility to be a success, or even if it's 12 strokes down the line. But if you don't do the next stroke, you're never going to have that opportunity.
Yeah, that's such a great way of looking at it. And it brings me back to just before the conversation where we were speaking around, when you're on stages, and you mentioned how it's so important to you to allow people to go through a certain shift. Like that's what you want to really see. And what I'm hearing from everything that you're doing is you're being a living, breathing example of what transformation looks like, right? Transformation in the sense that You're pushing beyond, who you were yesterday, and it's like, what's my growth edge, and how can I meet that, and how can I communicate with myself in a way that allows me to move forward without just suppressing and overriding, but in a way that takes us step by step. And then what I'm hearing from your speaking is you want to give people those same nuggets, not like look at me, but more like, this is inspiring. Like what greatness can you bring out of yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how do you bring those gifts out of others?
It's hard, hey? That the whole motivational speaking space has been hugely challenging for me. I've obviously, because of what I do, I've often had calls since I was young saying, "Oh, can you come talk to us?" And I get like, "No, I don't have anything to say. I'm just me. I'm just fighting my way through life." And I suppose that is the message. We're all just fighting our way through life, or maybe fighting is not the right term at all. We're stroking our way through challenges. Once you realize that just life is a series of challenges, it's also got so much to give. It's got so much joy and experience and adventure, but without the challenges, it's kind of empty. And once you get to a place where you embrace those challenges and you don't like look them up necessarily, but when they come, and they do, they do. I always land up swimming against the current. You look it in the eye. You look it straight in the eye, and you go, "Okay, I'm here, and I'm up for it." So yeah, through my experiences, and I think we all have those experiences, but they don't look the same. But we all have those nuggets. I just try to, through storytelling, I try to bring out the emotion in people to realize, because emotion really sparks action, I think, to realize that there is more to the life and to your day. And, it's absolutely fine to feel frustrated. I feel frustrated every day. But to not sit with that frustration, to rather go, okay, let's use it to move, even if it's not moving forward, just moving. Sometimes you move backwards. That's also not a bad thing. And it really, it's there's lots of nuggets to share. There's lots of tricks and tools and skills. I don't like the slideshow thing where I say, well, these are the 10 techniques to sort of, reach your own potential or live your best life or achieve success. I think emotion and passion is what really ignites something more. And that's what I hope to cultivate and to spark in people.
That's awesome. I mean, the emotion that that can be cultivated inside of, ourselves, or you can do that in someone else. Yeah, that's the ingredients of inspiration, right? Living an inspired, passion-driven life. This is purely curiosity-driven, and probably it gets curious to me because it's been a part of my journey. Is, say, like, you were to take away all of the challenges and the achievements and the next thing that you're working towards, like, what's your relationship like with stillness?
Next question. No, I'm kidding. Look, I think it's good to understand yourself, and my relationship with stillness lives in the water. That's actually, even though it looks like I'm just this ultra marathon swimmer who goes out to break records and win races, and in fact, that's not at all. I swim because it's where everything calms down. It's where I can breathe. Sometimes I say, the further out in the ocean I am, the better I can breathe. It's where I breathe in life. I breathe in my own soul. That's where my mind works best. It's where I can make sense of things to the degree where I am able to make sense of things. So that's my stillness. Sometimes it accompanies an effort to do my fastest kilometer. That doesn't mean that that's my focus. My focus in the water is really to just reset and to just be, in a way. And when the glorious light and the beauty of the water and the depths and the suspension that you feel when you're swimming, and And that feeling of flying, actually, which I get, and again, that's earned because I'm fit and I'm able to just really move through the water in a beautiful way. For me, that's bliss, and for me, that's stillness.
Yeah, and I asked. Thank you for answering that, because I asked that because, for example, we went on an actual holiday, like no work, just holiday,
Yeah.
which is a rarity. And I noticed that sometimes when my rituals, I often meditate, do breath works, and from working and enjoying life at the same time. But when those rituals kind of drop off, which we did on that holiday, suddenly some voices started to come through that I haven't heard for a very, very long time. And fortunately, like with the practices of, I was able to just meet those voices and do similar practice that you were sharing. But suddenly in more of the stillness, when more of the rituals and routines started to drop off, or maybe I didn't have that thing that I was really focused on, these voices started to come in, and I was like, that's really interesting. Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
It's almost like this, when I'm going towards an achievement and moving, it's like those voices kind of settle down.
Yes.
So that's why I was curious to ask what your relationship is like with that.
So those voices are saying, you're not good enough, you're not doing enough.
All of that. Yeah.
Look, I think, we need to be very objective about these voices. Where do they come from? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but they're not always bad, because I think what you're doing is important. I think that you create shifts of your own, I'm sure, a lot. I think you make a difference, you inspire people, and you have to take action to do that. It's not, you have to keep driving in order to make those shifts and make a difference. And maybe that's your purpose for now. Perhaps in 20 years' time, those voices will say different things. But for now, that's your purpose. And those voices are reminding you of that. We need reminders. We also need to be inspired. And sometimes it just has to come from within ourselves. And yes, I understand the questioning of it. I come from a place where, I feel when I was younger, I was doing things to feed my ego sometimes. I loved being on the front page of the newspaper after I did a swim in my red costume, whatever. I loved the applause that I received on stage. I loved it. I still like it. And then I started hating it. Then I started going like, why? Is it all about me? I don't even, no, that's not right. I don't want it to be about me. I don't want it to be about me. But I sort of evolved to the place where I understand those voices are still there, where I hope that they're not trying to encourage me to feed my own ego, because I'm quite aware of that. But I still want to I still want to show up, and I still want to do more because of whatever it is. I feel like even if it makes a small difference to one person, that's incredible. I feel like that's what we're here for. And when I do like swims that are for a bigger purpose, I often do my solo marathon swims would usually be to raise funds and awareness for organization or something. The motivation to swim and to swim well is just so much more real, and it's so much bigger. And when I want to give up, I don't, because there's something bigger involved. And that feeling when you see a donation coming in, and when you see you've raised 250,000 rands, and people are coming and saying, thank you so much, you've changed our organization. That feeling is absolutely priceless. And that's what I want every day, actually. I wish I could, because that's being of service. And in my space, and I think perhaps in yours and in many people's spaces, you cannot be of service if you don't challenge yourself, if you don't push yourself, if you don't drive yourself to be more.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very nuanced, right? Because it's like, yeah, that voice, yeah, it's like similar. That's like a driving force to be like, right, keep creating, keep moving forward. Yeah, at the same time, like in those moments of stillness, which I was noticing, I was like, right, these are opportunities now to meet that voice And similar to like maybe like what you were sharing with the swim, like meet that voice and get to know it a bit more. Be like, you know, where is that coming from? Like, oh, you're welcome. Like, you're welcome here, right? Rather than resisting and pushing away, it's like welcoming that in and integrating it. Because I just see them as young, wounded parts of self, right? That,
of course.
they like to show up every so often. And sometimes when it gets quiet, I think or when it gets still is when those voices arise the most. And then I just see that almost like as a healing opportunity, which then when you come back into a space like this, it's like more integrated,
Absolutely.
more who you truly are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So when it comes for you with let's switch gear with like your reframe, because I think that could be very beneficial for the people listening. And how do you go about reframing in those moments when the voices do get loud, when you're on your endurance swim, when you're on stage, or whatever the stage is for the people listening? Like, how do you reframe in that moment when you realize that you need to?
Yeah
You
just do. When you realize you need to, when you need to make that choice to, again, to listen to the optimistic voice rather than the pessimistic voice, because I think it's such a simple one and it's such a cliche, but there's always a dark and a light to every concept, to every thought, and to rather choose the light one. And I have those moments every day again where those voices are saying, oh my gosh, what you're doing is useless. It's not going to go anywhere. Look, you've spent all this time into trying to build something and everyone's rejecting you, or this person say, or that you've got limited success. And then I just go, hang on, let's look at this objectively. Who am I talking to here, first and foremost? Is it fear or is it something else? And often it's fear. And when I can recognize it as fear, then again, you can say, okay, I understand you, I acknowledge you, but let's reframe this from a more positive perspective. You did get responses. Someone did say they would get back to you. You did actually do one of the things that you set yourself out to do. Maybe you didn't do 10, but you did 2 or 3, and there's still 7 to come. And sometimes the outcome will look different to what you had envisioned it, but that's exciting, isn't it? And if you didn't embark on something at all, there would be no outcome whatsoever, and you would still be sitting. So, sometimes you just have to force yourself into that reframe mode. You just have to force yourself. You have to just search so deeply within for the optimist. I have one story that's quite funny, as much as it is quite dark. During COVID, I had 2 businesses in the entertainment industry, and obviously I was a performer as well, and that was my life, my livelihood. I have 3 kids to feed, and COVID happened and it was gone. It was annihilated overnight. Businesses were closed down, and there was going to be no performances for, as it turned out, a couple of years, right? And I had to do something. And obviously as a creative, also as a musician, this was my lifelong dream, and I'd built it up, and, I'd been performing across the world, and it was amazing, and suddenly it was gone. So you go into mourning, but very soon I realized, okay, I can mourn, but I can't, because I need to feed my kids, and also maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe it's life telling me, well, hey, this is not all that there is for you. So I started a live stream business because I thought, well, there's no events taking place live, but people are live streaming and they're doing it badly. So I'm going to start the production company that's going to live stream properly. And so I did. And we started becoming quite busy, but it wasn't like flying, I thought it would fly, and I invested money into the equipment and everything. And so one day I got a call from a funeral house saying, can you come and live stream this funeral? And I was like, whoa, I don't think we want to be doing funerals. But we accepted it because we had bills to pay. And that funeral led to another funeral, until soon we were doing like 15 funerals a week, live streaming funerals. And this is from a very creative background, being on stage, performing for thousands of people, and now we're live streaming funerals. And okay, fair enough. Usually my colleagues would handle it, and I would just sort of monitor the stream and so on. But this one day, I had to stand in for the camera operator, and the client said, the widow said, please, can you just stand and film the people as they're coming in? We just want to see their faces. We haven't seen each other. We're supposed to be together. And I thought, fine. And I'm standing there, I'm filming. And then they open the big doors to the church, and the coffin is pushed in. And I was like, okay, it's a funeral. There's going to be a coffin. Fine. And so they park the coffin right next to me, and they open the coffin. And now I'm standing here next to an open casket, less than a meter from me, and going like, hang on, this is not my story. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going like, and I went into complete existential crisis, because now I'm looking at this dead body and I'm not knowing what to feel, because firstly, it's not even a human anymore, and I didn't know it, and now I can't relate to it, and my mind can't make sense of it. It's just too much. And then to the left, I've got the family, and they are wailing because they're seeing this, and it's just all emotion. And now I'm starting to shake, and I go, I can't, like, who am I? What am I doing here? 2 years ago, I was playing in front of 3,000 people in India. They're shouting my name. And now I'm standing here next to an open coffin. And later that day, I had to go to the gravesite to film the coffin being lowered into the ground. And now the grave is surrounded by people, and I didn't get my shot. And I'm like, I'm being paid for this. I need to get the shot. And I look around, and I see the recently covered grave of someone else behind me. And I thought, well, that'll give me a bit of height. So I climb on. So I stand there on top of the recently covered grave of a stranger, filming stranger number 2 being lowered into the ground. And I go like, this is not my story. It's not. And I go, but this can be my story for the next few years. And I can't stand here shaking, and I can't stand here resisting it. How am I going to reframe this? And my mind goes like this, and my mind goes like this. And I go like, wow, actually, hey, I'm not the victim. Those people who can't be here, those people who have to watch the live stream, they're more victim than I am. And I'm lucky because I'm bringing them this experience, and I'm being paid for it. I'm actually able to pay the bills and feed my children through this. And then I had this amazing sensation, because I'm standing on top of someone's grave, and I'm higher up than everyone else, and I'm feeling this height, and I go like, well, maybe being on the top isn't the way we thought it would be, because here I am, and I am actually the luckiest person in this space. I'm employed. I'm bringing them this experience. I'm making a difference to them. I'm making a difference to my family, and I'm okay. And so from really, really questioning the will to live to that moment where I'm fortunate and I'm grateful and it's a positive, I suppose that's reframe.
That is reframe. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story.
And it's always, it's always there. It's always there. You have to dig very, very deep for it, but you have to also choose it, You have to choose to want to reframe, because sometimes it's feeds us more to be in that state of fight for some reason.
Yeah, I think it ties back to what you were sharing before as well. Appreciate you sharing that story. That was very very captivating story for sure. What an experience. But yeah, what you were sharing earlier, where when you meet that it sounds like you had that response. Where you're like, this isn't who I should be, and you felt it all in your system, and then you managed to move through it and reframe. Yeah, actually, it would have been easier, and maybe not in that moment, but on the whole, to fall into that story, because it probably would have meant that you didn't need to keep taking those steps forward, right?
Exactly.
You could have just been like, this isn't me.
This is my fault.
Yeah,
it's not my fault. I'll just be the miserable person behind the camera. I don't want to be miserable.
Yeah. So why do you think people play the victim?
I think you said it. I think it's easier, and it means that they don't have to keep chasing their goals. It means that they don't have to do those hard things to step up and be more than this. Because there's an excuse. There's always going to be an excuse.
Yeah. And then now you've navigated through that. Like, what's your... Yeah, so you've got all of your the companies that you've got going on, your endurance swimming, your performing, speaking, keynote, like inspiring how much your capacity to hold life. What's next for you?
Oh my goodness. I'm looking forward to watching this podcast. No, I'm kidding. Look, it might look like huge success and greatness. It's really not. It's every day I work incredibly hard to do more. I'd love to do more speaking. I'd love to find myself on international stages. I only started speaking relatively recently. So my keynotes have been running for maybe 3 years or so, mostly in Southern Africa. I'd love to go speak in other countries, in America, Europe, England, obviously English speaking places. I love to travel the world. I love to be exposed and connect to other cultures. I have traveled extensively, but not in this capacity. So I really, really would love to share my message beyond the shores of Africa. And that's my main focus at the moment. And I do have a couple of big swimming goals. I'm not getting younger. I'm 45 now, and I haven't done a ultra marathon like 30-40K distance in a while. And in fact, the last one was before I had kids, which was a while ago. And when I did those distances, like 30-40Ks, I felt incredible. I never actually felt like I couldn't go further. On the contrary, usually on about the 35K mark, I got this renewed energy, and it felt like I could go further. Maybe it's like a drug or something. But I love to challenge myself over that distance and actually see what my limit might be. So I want to, do some ultra marathons, which means I need to go north, because here in South Africa, the water temperature is not conducive to that kind of distance, that time in the water. And so I've got a plan to do 5 or 6 swims around Africa, which also have never been done. So I'd love to just expose the people in Africa and swimmers and the sporting fraternity to this beautiful sport that is open water swimming. It's growing incredibly elsewhere in the world, but there's still a lot of opportunity and scope in Africa. So I want to just go and show them what's possible or not possible. So that's my drive at the moment. 2 years' time, it might be different. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, adaptable, and it sounds like you've got some goals and things in place of things that you're moving for. For the listeners, they've been really inspired by you taking on these different endurance events. Like, what would be a piece of advice that you would share with them, of like how they can go about either finding an event that suits them, or even just having that thing for them in life that they can keep moving towards to stretch who they are?
Yeah, look, I think it's always there. I always remember when I was a kid, and I said that I never really swam. I didn't really participate in sport as a child, but there was always this attraction to the tiles of a swimming pool and the smell of chlorine. For what reason, But that was somehow born in me. There's this voice, there's this knowing that was important to me. It was just strange. I would drive past the swimming pool, and I would go, ooh, ooh, and the tiles is what I loved. And the smell of that chlorine. And now it's my life. Like, now it's part of my life, but it never was then. And I think there's signals that something deeper within us, our higher self or whatever. I don't want to go too deep into that because I don't have any knowledge about it, but I do believe that there's more, and that we need to listen to the clues that our body and our souls give us, and don't just discard it. If there's something that attracts you, go in that direction. And it's in that space that you'll find maybe your community. That's in that space that maybe you might find your happy place, So you've got to go into the space where you think you might want to see yourself, and go try it. And if it doesn't work, then But there's so many spaces and opportunities. And then, yes, obviously, if you want to embark on a huge challenge or an endurance or anything in business, you've got to put in the time. It doesn't just happen. Nothing just comes from nothing. Yes, there's luck in life, which is a beautiful thing, which sometimes I experience and sometimes I don't. But you've got to be out there to be in line for the luck as well. And you just have to get up and go. There's no other way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I really love what you shared there with listening to almost like some would say your intuition or that inner guidance of, what is truly important to me, like rather than just looking at outside of self to be like, oh, this person's done that, I can do that too. Great, inspiration's important, right?
Yes,
But
yeah.
also like a inner message of, yeah, like piecing together, like it sounds for you that swimming was built into you from a very young age for some reason
Somehow,
somewhere
yeah.
in your soul, and then you followed that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also remember a moment where I tragically lost a cousin. I think we were teens. She was 16, I was 14. She died. She passed away. She fell off a mountain. And I didn't know how to process this. And I jumped in the pool and I would lay on the bottom of the pool and I would come up for air and I would just go down again. And somehow that just helped. And whenever I felt like I couldn't process something or I couldn't understand, I would go into the water and it would not wash it away, but it would just sort of absorb the pain and the inability to comprehend in a way that made me comfortable. So I think that's always been my space. And water is very therapeutic. So a lot of people might feel that, but other people might feel that out in the desert, or someone might feel that, I don't know, when shopping for hats. Whatever it is, it's fine. But listen to that voice and feel that space and go there more often. And I think that's where you might find your community and whatever it is that you're searching for. Sometimes we don't know what we're searching for, but we've got to go and search.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. All right, well, Carina, right at this point in the show, we have the vault section. Yeah, so each guest will leave a message at the end, and that goes into the vault. And then also there's some mystery messages in there too. So basically like the concept, just to set some context, because people at home listening as well do the same thing. Like you'll like take and pick out one of the notes in there, maybe from a guest, maybe a mystery message.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll have see what resonates with you around it, have a conversation. People at home can also do the same.
Oh, brilliant.
And then, yeah, leave a message at the end as well for a future episode.
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
You ready?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Would I know who it's from?
If it's from a guest, it will say their name.
Look at this.
Okay.
I might need my glasses. Okay, should I read it?
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, this is a real message.
Yes.
Let's go.
All right. So, someone on the 7th of October 2025 says, "Hey, your reminder, you rock and you matter." Number 2, the question: what are you doing to bring the joy in your life and the lives of the ones you love? And then there's a message that says, "Dream big, go anywhere, do anything. It's all possible." And it is is this Jessica?
Jessica Jensen.
Jessica Jensen.
Yeah.
Wow.
What resonates for you from there?
Well, yeah, I love that. You rock and you matter, which is absolutely true. I think we can feel so lost in this enormous world of drama and perceived success, and everyone else is doing amazing stuff and everyone else is doing better things than you, and they seem to be doing more and they seem to be more articulate and but you might look like that to them. We see too much sometimes, I think, and just be authentic. And I think just being authentic and being yourself, but expressing yourself and stepping forward and just being out there, doing what you believe in, makes you rock. I often think, oh my gosh, I'm not the best flute player in the world. Pretty good. I'm not the best swimmer in the world. There's always going to be someone better than me. Even if I win races, the next time someone's going to come and kick my bum, I'm not the best speaker. I mean, I'm Afrikaans. I have to translate everything in my head. I don't even know what language I speak anymore. I don't have the most amazing vocabulary. But those 3 aspects and whatever else I'm capable of doing makes me incredibly unique. It means that when I speak, I understand emotion, and I understand visceral feeling, and that's how I get through to my audience. And no other speaker can do that, because they're not flute players, and they don't do video editing. I do that as well, and they don't feel the water in the way that I do. And I think that makes me unique, and that makes me able to translate an emotion or a special message in a different way. In the same way in my work, all the aspects of me makes me unique, and that's me, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you. So even if it's little tiny things that to you feel meaningless, and you're not the best at everything, it doesn't matter. It's you are unique and you rock. And if you believe that, then you can make a difference. I think it's so important, the narratives that we create for ourselves. Because my narrative today can be, oh, like I said, everyone else is doing more than me, or everyone else is better than me, or look, they're all that. Looked on LinkedIn. Don't go on LinkedIn. It's just AI. But if I create the narrative of, I'm here today, I have something special and unique to give, and I'm going to give it, that's transformation.
That's awesome. Yeah. What a way to close off. I mean, that's that with the message is that, every single one of us is unique in our own way. And it's like all of our life experiences and our quirks and the way that we are, and that actually makes us unique in a way, and that makes you rock, right? That's infectious.
Absolutely.
When like the conversations there, I really appreciate you coming on and having the openness, the vulnerability, the honesty to share like your truths and the things that have worked for you and your own. And it's infectious because it's you and it's your stories, right?
Absolutely.
And each and every one of us have that within us, our own unique stories and gifts, and it needs to be shared with the world in our own unique way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think also the simpler, the more authentic, really. And I often struggle with myself going, well, my message is so simple. But perhaps that's the answer. Perhaps the answer is just simplicity. And if we can just be authentic and honest about the things that make us doubt, and the things that cause fear, and the things that inspire us and motivate us to step up and do more, then we can all do so much more, or actualize in a more authentic way. And yeah, you don't have to be anything or anyone except you.
Awesome. Well, Carina, thank you so much for coming on.
You're so welcome. Thanks for
Appreciate
having me. Thank
yeah.
you.